All right, so you sent over this transcript, right?
Mm.
From FOX4 Dallas-Fort Worth. It's Elon Musk speaking at a Trump rally
Yeah.
in Butler, Pennsylvania. And I gotta say,
Yeah.
that's not something you see every day. Okay. A tech CEO, and not just any tech CEO, Elon Musk, at a Trump rally.
Right. It's definitely not your typical Silicon Valley move. Like, you've got someone known for, what, electric cars, space exploration,
Right.
suddenly diving headfirst into this really polarized political scene.
Exactly.
It's kind of like he's sending a message, you know?
It's a bold statement for sure. And he doesn't hold back either. He actually calls this election the most important of our lifetime. Now, we hear that a lot. But coming from Musk, it hits different.
I see what you mean. Like, it's one thing for a politician to say it, but for someone like him with this kind of, I don't know, outside-the-box way of thinking,
Right.
it almost feels like he's sounding the alarm or something, you know?
Right.
Like, this is serious business.
Yeah, totally. It's like he's saying, wake up, people. And then there's this whole America under fire thing he keeps repeating.
Yeah.
That's some loaded language. What's the strategy there?
I think he's tapping into this feeling, right, that a lot of voters have. This feeling like the country's going in the wrong direction, like their values are under attack, under fire. It's powerful because it creates a sense of urgency of like, we need to fight back now.
And it's interesting you say that because then he goes on to call himself Dark MAGA. Not just a supporter, but like he's aligning himself with this hardcore faction.
Yeah, that's a really interesting choice of words, dark MAGA. You know, it's not just your everyday political label. This is deep cut stuff, born online, associated with like a much more intense segment of Trump's base.
Right.
And often it comes with this undercurrent of, you know, disillusionment, maybe even a little bit of aggression.
And Musk is usually so careful about his image, right?
Exactly. I mean, he's built his whole brand on being this forward-thinking innovator. So to align himself with this particular group, it's strategic, but it's also risky. He's definitely targeting a very specific audience with that.
So is it about appealing to a certain type of voter? Maybe someone who would be normally listened to a tech billionaire talking politics?
Possibly, yeah. You got to think about it, right? Musk has this massive platform, millions of followers who hang on his every word. By tapping into this dark MAGA sentiment, he might be trying to, like, mobilize a group that's become really distrustful of traditional politics.
Like he's speaking their language.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So then he gets into these classic Trump talking points. Freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, fair elections. But he presents them as if they're not just important, but like they're actively under attack.
Right. And that's how he really hooks into this well of anxiety that drives a lot of populist rhetoric. He's basically saying, look, these fundamental American values, they're being chipped away at. And for voters who already feel like their voices aren't being heard, it's like, it's a powerful message.
It's almost like he's saying, I understand you.
Yeah, exactly. And that he's fighting for them.
He zeroes in on two issues specifically: voter ID and free speech. Even makes a claim about California banning voter ID, which isn't actually true. Why focus on those two in particular?
Well, okay, so with voter ID, right, he's tapping into this deep desire for order and security. The message is, without stricter rules, our elections are vulnerable, they're open to fraud.
Even though there's really no evidence of widespread voter fraud.
Right, exactly. But by framing it as this common sense issue, like, you need ID to buy a beer, why not to vote? He bypasses that whole debate about evidence and speaks directly to this fear of a rigged system.
So it's more about creating a narrative, even if it doesn't totally line up with reality.
Yeah, you could say that. He's definitely playing to people's emotions, their fears and anxieties. And then you've got the free speech piece, which is really interesting.
Okay, how so?
It's like a shield and a sword, you know?
Interesting. Explain that.
He calls free speech the bedrock of democracy, which is hard to argue with, right? I mean, it's true. But then he subtly implies that certain voices, certain truths are being suppressed. And that's where it gets tricky.
It creates this feeling of they're trying to silence us.
Exactly. Like there's this hidden agenda to control what you hear, what you think.
It's like he's saying we're the good guys and they're trying to shut us down.
Yeah, and that's where his call to action comes in, right? He doesn't just want people to nod along, he wants them to get out there and do something. He keeps hammering this point about registering to vote, telling them how crucial it is, especially in swing states like Pennsylvania.
Right.
It's like, tell your friends, your family, text everyone you know. It's almost like he's launching a product, not just stumping for a candidate.
It's like a full-on marketing campaign for voter registration.
Totally. And I think that's what makes this whole thing so interesting. He's taking these techniques from the tech world,
Yeah.
social media, influencer marketing, and applying them to politics.
Yeah, it's like he understands how to build a movement online.
Exactly. Musk knows the power of networks, how to create buzz and mobilize people on a massive scale.
And he's definitely got people talking. One detail that really struck me was how he described Biden and Trump. It's like he's painting these two totally opposite portraits. Biden is like weak, frail, can't even climb stairs.
Right.
And then you've got Trump, the fighter, fist pumping even after getting shot. It's such a stark contrast.
It's totally intentional, though. He's playing on these deep-seated instincts we have about strength and leadership, right? By portraying Biden as this feeble old man and Trump as this almost mythical figure, it taps into this desire for a leader who's tough, who can overcome adversity, especially in times of crisis.
Yeah, like people want someone who can handle the pressure.
Exactly. He's speaking to that primal part of our brain that says we need a strong leader, someone who can protect us. And he does it all without explicitly saying, vote for Trump, which is kind of interesting.
Right. He's definitely not subtle about the message, but he's not hitting people over the head with it either.
It's clever, right, because he's focusing on the act of voting itself. But the subtext is crystal clear, especially given where he's speaking.
So it's less about telling people what to think and more about creating this narrative, this feeling that the stakes are incredibly high and that their vote is the answer.
Exactly. And that's a much more persuasive tactic because it lets the audience draw their own conclusions. They feel like they're arriving at the right answer on their own.
It's sophisticated, honestly. Like, on the surface, it seems like your standard political speech, but when you dig a little deeper,
Yeah, you start to see the layers.
there's a lot more going on.
You've got someone with Musk's tech savvy and influence, someone who could easily stay in his lane and talk about, electric cars and going to Mars. But he's choosing to wade into this incredibly polarized political landscape. It's a fascinating development.
Yeah, and it's not like he's just dipping his toes in the water here,
Yeah.
He's diving in head first.
Right, and that's what makes this such a pivotal moment, I think. You've got someone like Elon Musk with his massive platform, millions of followers, a captive audience, really, and he's choosing to use that influence in the political arena.
And not just talking about it on Twitter, right? He's showing up at rallies, aligning himself with a very specific ideology.
Exactly. And that raises some really important questions about, the role of tech leaders in shaping public opinion, in influencing elections. It's not just about innovation and technology anymore. It's about ideas and how those ideas are being spread and amplified.
It's like the stakes are even higher now, not just in politics, but in this digital world we're all living in.
Absolutely. Musk's appearance at this rally, the whole dark MAGA thing, it highlights how these lines are blurring, between technology, ideology, political action. It's all interconnected.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
It is, but that's the point of these deep dives, isn't it? We take these complex issues, we try to make sense of them, look at them from different angles, and hopefully we all come away with a little bit more understanding.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So, to wrap things up, I think the big question we're left with is this. As figures like Elon Musk become more and more vocal in the political sphere, what kind of impact is that going to have on our elections, on public discourse, on democracy itself?
It's a question we all need to be thinking about, especially as technology plays an increasingly central role in our lives and in our politics.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you all to ponder that. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.